our bags on apartment floors. Took our broken hearts, put them in a drawer. Everybody here was someone else before, and you can want who you want.
Please take your seats. The program will begin shortly.
Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. It's a new soundtrack. I could dance to this beat. Forevermore. The lights are so bright, but they never blind me. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. Like any great love, it keeps you guessing. Like any real love, it's ever changing. Like any true love, it drives you crazy. But you know you wouldn't change anything, anything, anything. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. It's a new soundtrack. I could dance to this beat. The lights are so bright, but they never blind me. Welcome to New York. Soundtrack. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. The lights are so bright, but they never blind me. Welcome to New York. So bright, they never blind. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York.
Please welcome to the stage Administrator Michael Regan, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Governor Katie Hobbs of the state of Arizona, and Sophia Kiani, Climate Cardinals.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Administrator Regan and Governor Hobbs. Thank you both so much for joining us today. We are so excited to kick off this session. I'd love to first start with you, Governor Hobbs. So, of course, we're really focused on water justice right now, and Arizona has a history of proactive, bipartisan water management. What do you see today as Arizona's most pressing water challenges, and how is your administration addressing these issues?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you brought up our history of bipartisan proactive leadership on water, because we do have such a great history of that. It's why we've been able to thrive in the middle of the desert, and we go to great lengths to safeguard this precious, limited resource. And just a quick example of how we've done that. Over the last half century, from 1957 to 2019, we've grown by over 6 million people in Arizona. Our economic output has grown by 2,100%, and yet our water usage has remained flat. So this is just proof that we know how to be smart about utilizing our water resources. That being said, we do have significant challenges, and there's three main ones that I want to address. First and foremost is the Colorado River. As climate gets hotter and the watershed's drier, this river that the West relies on is slowly drying, and we have to be conservative. We have to use less. We are currently negotiating with the other 6 states and the federal government and Mexico to look at what those cuts will look like. Last year, I was proud to be able to get California to the table to negotiate a deal through 2026 that conserves water for Arizonans while avoiding the drastic cuts that we would have faced otherwise. And so we're continuing those negotiations as we look at post-2026 and what river management looks like. Secondly, is the issue of groundwater protection and reform. In the 80s, Governor Babbitt ushered in an unprecedented groundwater management act, but we haven't really updated it since then, and we need reforms to address some of the unregulated areas in especially rural Arizona. We have aquifers that hold enormous quantities of groundwater, but this is limited, and so we have to do more to protect this resource. And we have aggressively pursued legislation. We're continuing down that path to make sure that this water is available for generations to come. And then thirdly is the issue of water quality. And want to give a huge shout out to Administrator Regan and the work the EPA has done ensuring that Americans across the country have access to safe, clean drinking water. Like everywhere else, we're dealing with the issue of PFAS and the challenges there. In my first year as governor, we were able to secure the first appropriation that was PFAS specific to address this in the state. And this was part of our bipartisan negotiation in a divided government, and we're continue to be focused on how we can ensure safe water for citizens.
And on more of a national level, Administrator Regan, what do you see as the most pressing water security challenges currently facing the United States more broadly? And also, how will the recently announced bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act funding, touted as the largest investment in U.S. water infrastructure in history, address these issues?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us, and thank you for the question. I think that when we think about the lack of security in the United States, the first thing we think about are the areas that have lacked investment from the very beginning. Many of our tribal, our black and brown, our low-income communities have never had the proper investment to ensure that everyone has access to clean drinking water. Couple that with just the general lack of investment in water infrastructure in the United States, you have a problem. And thanks to the president's leadership and a bipartisan group of folks in the House and the Senate, we do now have historic resources that we can invest into our water infrastructure. When you add the stressors of climate change and the climate impacts, the climate is sort of a big predator in terms of toppling the lack of investment we've had in water infrastructure, which unfortunately disproportionately impacts those who are low income, who are black and brown, who are in our tribal communities. And then you add the natural stressors of the issues that our Western governor leadership are trying to tackle with droughts and just with lack of accessibility to water. This is posing a significant human and economic threat to the United States of America. But I'm proud to say that we do have historic resources that we're prioritizing in the areas we need to ensure that everyone has access to clean drinking water. The last thing I'd like to say is that our foreign adversaries understand these weaknesses and are attempting to infiltrate and take action against these targets that they're considering very weak. And so we're working with our National Security Council and the White House to ensure that as we're making these investments, we're also making the technological investments to ensure that we protect everyone in the United States.
And on the topic of investments, I mean, as a young person, I'm 22. I would love to understand, Governor Hobbs, as Arizona continues to grow, what long-term strategies are being developed to balance water security for future generations and sustained economic growth?
So, growth and sustainable water management are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they go hand in hand. And it is because of our efforts towards water security that we've been able to fuel such incredible economic growth in Arizona. And our approach to water management has actually helped to facilitate the economic successes that we're seeing. And so there's four key things that we're focused on when it comes to managing water for future sustainable growth. First and foremost is just our governance. We have a world-class 100-year assured water supply program that guarantees we'll have the water that we need to grow for generations before that growth happens. And we're looking for more ways to strengthen that law and these water management programs. Secondly, conservation is a critical piece of our water management. I mentioned what we're doing, some of the conservation with the Colorado River. We're looking always ways we can use less water, increase efficiency, and employ the best technology to drive our water use down. Recently, we invested $200 million in water-saving programs and moving the needle, and a lot of the investments from the Inflation Reduction Act have been critical here. Thirdly, we're employing a lot of technology around reuse. We want to make sure we're getting every single use out of every drop of water that we can. And wastewater, which used to be a nuisance, is now something that we are able to reuse and employ extensive water recycling programs for crops, for even cooling the United States' largest nuclear power plant in Arizona. And then finally is the issue of augmentation. This is really a long-term strategy, but we are looking for ways to find responsible, sustainable, additional supplies of water, which we're going to need. And again, long-term strategy, but certainly one of the tools we have in our toolbox. And all of these efforts are helping to provide Arizona with a robust water management portfolio that is going to make sure that we can continue to thrive economically and have water security for generations to come.
And Administrator Regan, I'm proud to be on the EPA's Youth Advisory Council, and I'd love if you could share how the EPA plans to address disparities in water access and quality across different communities in the United States, particularly in underserved and rural areas.
Well, first of all, I'll say we will leverage these federal advisory councils like the one you and your colleagues have joined, which gives us a fresh, different perspective for how we should execute and implement our policies and our regulations. We also seek the guidance of people who have been leading in the community, like Ms. Catherine Flowers and others, who have had solutions for decades. The goal for the agency is, now that we have been the recipient of over $50 billion, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, to invest in our communities, invest in water infrastructure. The goal now is for us to partner with our youth, partner with our advocates, partner with our governors, and not be paternalistic, but say, okay, there are certain solutions that you all have been thinking about for decades. How do we get those federal resources to you so that you can put those resources to work immediately to benefit your communities? And so I think that we have strategically designed implementation plans, connected with the right people. We have the structures in place to push these billions of dollars to the communities that need them the most. And I feel very good that over the past 2 years, we are getting the money into the hands who need it the most, and we're starting to see the results that the people in many communities have been asking for a long period of time.
That's incredible. And kind of on the topic of collaboration, Governor Hobbs, I'd love if you could share how is Arizona collaborating with neighboring states and the federal government to develop a unified approach to managing the Colorado River's resources more sustainably?
Collaboration is critical when it comes to managing the Colorado River. 7 states, Mexico, we all rely on its water. And I came into office last January and started to tackle this head on. Arizona was going to bear the brunt of federal cuts if we didn't come together and work out a plan. So we came to an agreement, a proposal that we presented last year that was approved, and we're moving forward with post-2026 negotiations. It's certainly challenging, but our commitment to collaboration is how we've gotten as far as we have, and that has to continue. The other piece of the Colorado River management is the outstanding tribal water rights claims that exist in Arizona. We have 22 federal tribes in Arizona, and many of them have outstanding claims. And some of these have been going on for decades. We were finally able to complete negotiations on 2 tribal water rights settlements that have been outstanding for over 50 years. One of them, it settles water rights for the Navajo Nation, the Hopi tribe, and it will be the largest water rights settlement in U.S. history. We had to be committed to collaboration in that agreement as well. It involved 39 stakeholders and parties that needed to sign off on the agreement, and we got there. The settlement has been introduced now as legislation. So it was that collaboration that was important, but also our willingness to change longstanding policy that had stood in the way of these agreements being settled in the first place. So all of these things are critical to managing the future of Colorado River, providing certainty for its users, and it's often difficult to stay at the table, but we've been committed to doing that, and we will into the future.
The Colorado River is an incredible example of how collaboration can really move the needle. And on the same token, I'd love to understand, how has partnership and collaboration helped to further the work that the EPA is doing, both in Arizona, but also on a national scale?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that without proper partnership, you simply can't get the job done. And I'll start with the public side. There is a proper role of the federal government, and we understand that role, but we also understand the importance of the partnership with our co-regulators at the state level. And Governor Hobbs and I have developed a very strong relationship, understanding that these issues are not insurmountable if we come together, not just collectively with the state and the federal government, but adding our mayors to the mix to ensure that we have all levels of government really flowing together, putting those resources to work. And then we collectively need to tap into our private sector counterparts to be sure that we have the right public-private partnerships in pursuit of these very challenging issues. We need policy, we need regulation, but our goals really are to set up the rules of engagement, the rules of the road. We need for our innovators and our entrepreneurs to begin to bring technology and business models to bear so that we can protect these precious water resources, and also to ensure, again, that every single person in this country has access to clean, safe, affordable drinking water. And that's why I say collaboration is important, and it will take all of us if we're going to meet the moment.
And when we look into the future, Governor Hobbs, I'd love to understand, what is your vision for Arizona's water future, and how do you hope to leave a lasting impact on the state's water security and sustainability during your time in office?
Well, obviously, it's a future where we have water security, and farmers in rural Arizona aren't looking at having depleted wells. And I think that the way we get there and the way we tackle that is by not shying away from these tough challenges. Nobody wants to deal with water. It's a difficult issue. But if we don't, we're never going to get there. And we've moved the needle forward so far already. We have a long way to go. But I am committed to doing what it takes to get to a place where we have the reform in place that we need, that we're employing the technology that will help us get there, and that is what I hope my legacy is on water in Arizona.
And similarly, our last question to you, Administrator Regan, what is your vision for the United States water future in the face of the climate crisis?
Well, I hope it's defined by strategic engagement and partnership. And I think whether it's tackling the lack of wastewater infrastructure in Lowndes County, Alabama, with people like Catherine Flowers, whether it's tackling drought in the Colorado River with governors like Katie Hobb, or whether it's really leveraging the thoughts of the National Youth Council, Advisory Council, we recognize that water is a precious natural resource that should be afforded to every single person in this country, especially all of our children. So I hope the legacy reflects that President Biden is the first president in modern history to invest at this level in our infrastructure, and our water infrastructure will benefit from those investments, not just some, not just those at the top, but every single person in every single community across the country. I'm hoping that's what the legacy reflects.
Well, I'm personally so excited to see what the future of water management looks like for our country, and I'm so grateful to both of you for joining me on this panel today. Let's have a warm round of applause, and a thank you for Administrator Regan and Governor Hobbs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. And now I think we'll be moving to our commitments to action.
Please welcome to the stage Christopher Sveen.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, my name is Christopher Sven. I am the co-founder and CEO of Renesis, and it's a sincere honor, an undeniable honor, to be a part of the Clinton Global Initiative. At Renesis, we take the waste out of wastewater. Water is the foundation of all life, and yet 80% of global wastewater is dumped largely untreated into our environments, even in Norway. This is not just a challenge, this is a crisis we intend to solve, and we don't have time to waste. Whether water scarcity, pollution, and resource depletion are at a breaking point, Renesis is here to address it now, and hopefully with partnerships to come from this forum. We believe that sustainable, cost-effective, and scalable technologies are the clear way forward if we want to create a world where clean water is not just a privilege, but it's a universal right. Our cutting-edge modular water as a resource recovery facilities are not your standard solutions. It's capable of removing 99% of wastewater particles above 5 microns. And beyond water purification, it transforms and unlocks said waste into an opportunity. Our technology harvests this valuable carbon that can be converted into renewable energy, fertilizers, topsoil regenerators, turning wastewater from a financial environmental burden into a global resource. This isn't just a concept, it's happening now. Last year, at the Clinton Global Initiative 2023 Commitment to Action, we committed to scale our pilot into a full-scale modular facility. And I'm proud to report that not only have we accomplished that goal, but because of its positive impact, we've kept the pilot model operational, processing over 1 million cubic meters, or 264 million gallons of water over the last year. Since then, in Norway, we have partnered with industry giants like Havrønbøker in Germany, Sweco and Key Plants in Sweden, and CSI in Norway and Japan to push what's the limits of what can be possible. We've secured financing. We've moved from pilot phases to full-scale installations, and we've been conservative, meticulous, and relentless in getting this right. Through our water as a service business model, now 16 municipalities, 4 fisheries, 2 mining companies are implementing our technology in Norway. We're expanding into Denmark and the UK, and we're ready for rapid deployment. In 2025, we should hit a minimum of 10 million cubic, or 2.6 billion gallons of wastewater processed. But we're not stopping here. Our ambition is global. We aim to push the paradigm shift in wastewater, turning this essential public service into a revenue-generating, resource-recovering, scalable powerhouse. Why can't we go to 100 million or 1 billion cubic meters? Imagine the ripple effect. Millions of cubic meters of wastewater being purified, 1,000 tons of carbon harvested, entire ecosystems being restored. With the backing of CGI, we've gained credibility, we have built amazing partnerships, and we're moving full speed ahead towards achieving our Mission Zero. Mission Zero for us is zero discharge, zero wasted resources, and zero energy consumption. This is not just about solving today's problem, it's about reshaping the future. And in there with our CGI 2024, it's about what's working, your theme, what's working. Renesis is working. So join our mission, be a part of the mission, make the mission yours, and together we can turn one of the world's greatest challenges into one of its most epic opportunities. Thank you, and we look forward to changing the world together.
Please welcome to the stage Lama Bility, Didomi.
Good morning. My name is Lama Ability. I am the founder and CEO of Didomi, a social enterprise dedicated to combating the water crisis and mitigating the effects of plastic waste. One bottle provides 10 years of clean, safe water to a person in need. To date, we have provided clean and safe water to 60,000 people in 6 different countries. I am an immigrant from Liberia who endured the water crisis while growing up. I remember waking up early in the morning before going to school and walking nearly 3 miles to gather water for my family to eat, clean, and cook for the day. I also lost many family members to waterborne diseases. Approximately 2.2 billion people worldwide do not have access to clean and safe water, highlighting a significant public health crisis. This situation forces women and children to spend around 200 million hours collectively gathering water, which not only poses immediate health risks, but also hammers human potential. By diverting time from education, work, and community development. This issue of water crisis and water access is compounded by the environmental impact of single-use plastics. Annually, 12 million tons of plastic enter our oceans, contributing to pollution and ecosystem degradation. This is exacerbated by consumption of single-use water bottles, with 1 million bottles purchased every minute. The majority of these plastics end up in African countries, either being shipped directly to Africa or landing on its coast, further strengthening the environmental and health infrastructures of these regions. Today, I am announcing a Clinton Global Initiative commitment to action to address two intertwined global challenges: the lack of access to clean and safe water and the environmental damage caused by single-use plastics. Our commitment is to tackle these challenges holistically by providing sustainable alternatives to single-use water bottles and supporting initiatives that improves access to clean, safe, and reliable water sources. We will work with 20 higher education institutions to transition away from single-use plastics and implement sustainable water sources on campuses while also providing clean, safe water to people in need. We just completed our first partnership. We partnered with Catawba College to provide high-quality, reusable water bottles to all of their students, staff, and faculty. We will be providing 1,700 people access to clean and safe water and helping keep hundreds of plastics from entering our oceans and waterways. By addressing both the water crisis and the plastic crisis, we aim to create a positive impact on public health, environmental sustainability, and well-being of communities affected by these issues. My name is Lamar Ability, and I believe we all have the ability to do good, and we can help the world get rid of the water crisis and the plastic crisis one bottle at a time. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Stephanie Fields, Wash Foundation.
I'm short. Hello, everyone. I used to live in a little pink and blue gingerbread wooden house in Haiti, the Western Hemisphere's poorest yet most amazing country. And what began as bewilderment, it turned to alarm when I started to notice that the children in my village were so often getting sick, and in some cases even dying, from preventable illnesses like the flu and diarrhea. Still today, the #1 killer of children around the globe under age 5. I found myself going to too many funerals. And so when I returned to the United States, I just couldn't shake the fact that this wasn't happening because my neighbors and their children were weak or careless. It was happening because they simply had never been provided the education or the resources to raise their children healthy and with dignity. And that epiphany in Haiti literally turned into my lifelong mission to ensure that all children, no matter where they're born or how much money they have, are raised with the resources and the understanding around germ transmission and clean water and sanitation that so many of us take for granted. If all people had access to clean water, to sanitation facilities, and understood germ transmission, if they understood the close connection between their health and how they practice hygiene, just imagine how many lives, or deaths actually, could be prevented. Think about the COVID-19 epidemic. Think about cholera. And so my mission is to ensure and to enlighten people about WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene. I want to bring an end to the gap that exists in the access to WASH resources and education that are still continuing to literally kill children around the world for no reason. And with my team at the WASH Foundation, I'm working with partners, with local leaders, and with national governments to ensure and to advocate and to fund the inclusion of WASH education and WASH resources. Again, clean water and sanitation, things so many of us take for granted, into the national curriculums of schools and healthcare centers, and to make sure that these communities and these institutes have the resources that they need, especially in times of emergencies. And so today I'm announcing at the Clinton Global Initiative, my commitment to action to bring WASH education to 10 schools and a healthcare center in the Dominican Republic, impacting over 155,000 people. By simply empowering school teachers and workers in healthcare centers with the resources that they need to make sure their communities are safe, I truly believe that we can reverse the negative effects of a lack of water, sanitation, and hygiene, and effectively break the cycle of so many needlessly unnecessary lives lost to preventable illnesses. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Sophia Kiani, Climate Cardinals, Ricardo Alba Torres, Eco Group H2O, Beth Koigi, Magic Water, and Vedika Bhandarkar.
Hello, everyone. We're so excited to go on to this incredible panel. So first to start, Ricardo, I'd love to start with you. Can you share, to start everything off on a light foot, what inspired you to create Eco Group H2O, and how does your technology help water access in Colombia?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sophia. My name is Ricardo Alba. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Eco Group H2O Plus. We are a company and a foundation too in Colombia. We are a family company, and we provide harvesting rainwater to poor communities around our country, our village. We are started because we see that a lot of communities in the rural and peri-urban areas in Colombia doesn't have access to clean and safe water, and we create this amazing technology that we call Ecomuro in Spanish, or Eco Wall. We can harvest 250 liters in a vertical rainwater tank that we built with this kind of bucket containers with reused plastic, and we provide filtration water, purifying water to poor communities to across our reverse osmosis filtration system. Actually, we have 85,000 beneficiaries around Colombia.
That's incredible. And Beth, I would love if you could share. So Magic Water is another innovative technology that's used to create water access in hard to reach places. So can you tell us all more about what your technology does and how it can benefit people?
Yes, so my name is Beth Koigi and I'm from Kenya. So Magic Water was started 7 years ago, right? Around the same time we were experiencing one of our prolonged droughts. So we just came out of a 3-year-long drought. And this is, of course, contributed by climate change. And, you know, the way sub-Saharan Africa experience climate change is through drought season. So we are having less and less more rainfall. So Magic Water works in arid and semi-arid regions to provide clean drinking water, specifically to schools and hospitals. And currently, Magic Water, the past 1 year, we've been installing water kiosks in some of these areas, in Marketplace, near where people regularly go to. And the reason for this is because most of the region we work in, communities are pastoralist, so they move from one place to the next. So we are looking for places where there's more permanency. We also work with a lot of local non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to fund some of our projects. So currently we have around 6,000 beneficiaries. These are households benefiting from our system. So we call ourselves, we do install decentralized water solution. This is inclusive of air-to-water technologies. We've done desalination, we've done RO, and how we do it, we first do a need analysis. We understand the community. Where do you get your water from? What is your actual problem? So if it is water scarcity, the groundwater has dried up, you do not have rainfall for many years, we install our air-to-water technologies. We work with solar providers locally. If the water is available, it's just not fit for human consumption, whether it has very high levels of fluoride or boron, we install whichever technology fits that. We are seeing these communities becoming more and more healthy, because previously there are some diseases that are very hard to explain. Why would a person in northern Kenya have kidney stones? This is because there is high levels of boron in their drinking water. So a lot of all diagnosed diseases in Kenya, actually 80% are contributed by water, which is actually something now it's starting to come out, including some of esophagus cancers, from colon all the way to, so from the mouth all the way to the colon. So all these are contributed to the quality of water. So we are trying to address communities which are facing these kind of challenges.
And so in addition to these incredible technologies that we have that are working to increase water access, we also need to rethink the way that financing works in this field. And so Vedika, I would love if you could share, how has water.org approached funding and financing in the water space differently?
Sure, thank you, Sophia, very happy to. So, for the longest time, it was believed that in water, you can only fund it through government funding or through very traditional charity. And we decided that's not fast enough, and there isn't enough money in the world to do that. And so we said, how can we use philanthropy as a catalyst to bring commercial financing in the hands of people? The only requirement was we serve people who live in poverty, and we wanted to make sure that affordable financing is available to them, for them to implement the solutions that they want, for them to implement the solutions that are suitable to their geography, to meet their needs. And that's how we started partnering with financial institutions across the globe. We have reached 68 million people so far, and our financial partners have cumulatively lent close to $6 billion worth of loans in domestic currencies. So that was using philanthropy very creatively and really using it as a catalyst. But we didn't stop there. We said, okay, this is good, and this will get us to serve more and more people. But what we also need is to bring investment dollars, to bring the capital markets to this space. And again, when we started first thinking about this and talking to investors, everybody said, oh, no, you can't make money in water, it's not safe. And we decided to prove them wrong, so we set up an asset manager, which has just under $500 million of committed capital, where the investors both get impact, but they also get returns. Investors seek competitive returns. And as I said, we have just under $500 million of committed capital, and through Water Equity, the asset manager, we've been able to reach 6 million people. So I hope I'm able to convey that we're breaking all the myths. Yes, water does need government financing. Yes, of course, water does need traditional charity, but it also can and is open to catalytic philanthropy as well as investment dollars. And yeah, that's really what we have tried to do.
And of course, a big factor in water access is also climate change. So I'd love, this is a question for all of you, if you can share how climate change is playing a factor in your efforts to increase water access. Maybe let's go in reverse order if you want to start.
Sure. So at the heart of it, climate crisis is water crisis. And most of us are feeling the climate crisis through water. Think of too much rains, think of Bangladesh, Zimbabwe earlier this year, or think of droughts. I mean, think of Mexico City almost getting close to day zero. So, and if you don't have access, and if your access is already fragile, then how can you have resilience? How can you be resilient to the climate change? And in fact, climate change is making we as a world are at the risk of backsliding on all the progress that we have made. So our belief is, first, we need to make sure people have access so that they improve their resilience. They can get rainwater harvesting systems if the dry seasons are getting longer, or other solutions. But the second step is to make sure that the infrastructure is extending and the infrastructure is built in a climate resilient way. And that's exactly what our next big growth plan is.
Beth, same question.
So to support what she said, the way we feel climate change is through water scarcity. And recently we've started talking about creating communities that are more resilient and can adapt to these new situations. So for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, we are experiencing prolonged drought season, which will become more frequent. Previously, we would get drought after like 40 years. Right now, it's every few years, probably 2 or 3 years. So you find out that most of these communities do not know what to do when all the service water have dried up. 90% of the boreholes or groundwater dry up, so they are left with one borehole out of like 200 kilometers square kind of area. So this means that communities spend days just looking for 20 liters of water. So this has negative effect on these communities, even in terms of their income generating activity or their kettles, which they depend on, they dry. So it's about creating more and more resilient communities, even in terms of when there is drought, they can actually survive and still adapt to these new changes. So some of these solutions are coming in handy. And actually financing is one of the big question mark when it comes to water. Who finances and how is it financed? Even for us, that is one of the things we keep asking. Yes, we have this amazing technology, or all the technology needed to solve water crisis is already here, has already been invented, but how do communities access these technologies? Who pays for what? You know, these communities do not have money to pay, but they actually need this solution. So who pays and how? How is that financing going to look like?
Thank you. Yes, yeah, well, continue with your speech. In Bogota right now, we have a scarcity of water. Every 15 days, we don't have water in some localities in Colombia, in Bogota especially. For example, in my house, and I am a privileged, I have water every time. And for example, tomorrow, I'm going to take a shower and I can't because the scarcity and the climate change is a reality. Now, yes, the solution is what we're gonna do, or the answer, the question is what we're gonna do. Right now, we are acting, obviously, providing this kind of system to poor communities, but we have a step-by-step manual, digital manual, and the people can download this manual through our webpage and can develop their own harvesting system with PET bottles. That's the idea. Right now we have 12,000 downloaders around the world, and it's an appropriate technology, like an example that we can have, local solution to the scarcity of water, and it's just the beginning. We need to act with this kind of raw materials that we have in our communities, and from EcoGroup we want to expand that commitment, and we want to provide this kind of solutions from the house, not only for the rainwater, but also, for example, to the gray water. How you can use your gray water, for example, for the toilet every day. Why you use drinkable water to, to the toilet. Is that necessary? That's the question that we have from Eco Group.
And so all of you are developing innovative approaches to water access. So I'd love if you could share why your work is so important and how you see it changing in the coming years. And also, what partnerships do you see as critical to furthering your work? Maybe Beth, let's start with you.
Yes, thank you, Sophia, for that question. I think what you have seen, for example, in East Africa or in Sub-Saharan Africa, where I'm from, I'm giving from my own context. When I was starting Magic Water, there wasn't a lot of companies or social enterprise in water. I could count, we were like 4 or 5. Right now, we are so many. And also people are starting to see water as a business idea. So there's a bit more commercialization of water. Every few meters you go, for example, in Nairobi, you find a water kiosk. So people are now starting to understand the importance of investing in this, and this is something you can get returns from. So that has changed. And also we are seeing a lot of financing, and I'm very appreciative of what Water.org is specifically doing in East Africa. There's a lot of commercialization and a lot of adverts for, if you want to do rainwater harvesting, you can get a loan. Like, for example, rainwater harvesting in Kenya can cost up to $1,000. So how can a simple household afford that? So there's a lot of change from innovation to the way water is financed, to the way people perceive water. People are starting to start businesses in water. So it's easier to have these conversations right now and actually to sell water because, previously people would feel water should be free. Why am I paying for water? If I'm getting water from you, it should be free. So it's easier now to start a water kiosk than it was previously. So what we would like to see change, and especially from even in terms of partnership, first the government need to do a bit more to support all these micropreneurs coming up or these organizations that are working in water, either by providing incentives when it comes to implementation of water projects, whether it's tax holidays or things like that, but also, partnering with other organizations, because at the heart of any economy is water, and there is nothing you can do without water. There wouldn't be any banks would they finance. For you to manufacture anything, you'd need water. For you to do anything, even to run a household, a school, you'd need water. So I think it's a high time that everybody is involved in water. Everybody pays what they owe. The manufacturing company should pay. The corporate should pay for this resource, because I think those are the people who do not actually pay. Low income pay more for this resource, but the people who need to pay do not actually pay, and especially from my context. So I think it's a high time all people take responsibilities for what they use and take responsibility for this scarce resource.
Vedika.
Yeah, I think it's hard to follow Beth because she's answered this question so well. At the heart of it, the water crisis is a financing crisis. And the World Bank put some numbers to it, and they said for everybody in the world to get access to safe water and safely managed sanitation, you need $1.5 trillion from now till 2030. The amount of money which is being spent currently in the sector is just about a third of it. And that's including everything. So one wish is for everybody to lean into water, because this can't be done by any one actor alone. It can't just be done by the governments. It can't just be done by philanthropists. It needs every actor. It needs the corporate sector. It needs the capital markets. It needs the financial institutions. It needs every person in this room to lean in. And then I do believe, and we very strongly believe, that this crisis is solvable in our lifetimes.
Well, thank you, Vedika. in our case, yes, and we was talking about this more before. How is your business? You work with the government, you work with the company. In our context, in Colombia, it's very difficult to engage our project with the government, or the local government, the national government. the corruption in Colombia. You know, it's difficult to start with them, and it was a challenge when we start. How gonna be our company? You know, sustainable across the time. We have a B2B2C business company. We sell the product to companies, and they provide the system to the poor communities around the world. So I think the challenge is how we're going to start working more with the directly with the government. Maybe what kind of regulation of policies the government implements in the you know in the country in order to incentivize the social entrepreneurs like us to develop this kind of projects, or what difference the social entrepreneurs going to have with the big companies that already exist in Colombia in order to develop this kind of challenges. And yes, I think that is.
And for our final question, if you guys had one wish, because I know we're running short on time, what tool or policy would you like to see scale your work, and how do you see them having a greater impact as they grow? Ricardo, let's start with you, and then Beth, and then Vedika, close us out.
Well, I think that's it's very easy and could be very very simple, and is that that every house in the world could be a rainwater harvesting system, like a policy, like a regulation, because it's a reality, and the government can implement for allow that every house, every apartment, every construction in the world needs to have a harvesting system. We can have a really good solution for water scarcity.
Yeah, so for me is a policy that supports it's a
Equitable?
yes, equitable distribution of this resource. Mostly because you find out that an area has a certain water resource, but it's experiencing water scarcity because that resource is for some other, let's say, city. So a policy that support equitable distribution of this water resource will come in handy, whether it's in financing or supporting local communities access these resources would be very helpful, because some of these communities are not extremely hopeless or helpless. They have solved these crises for years and generations. It's just that they are not receiving the support that they need. Some policies are very restrictive and things like that. So policies that support equitable distribution, whether you are low income or high income community, you are able to access this resource.
Yeah, so first I just wanted to say in my country, when Chennai was almost day zero, they made it compulsory now that any new house has to have rainwater harvesting system. So it's happening right now. It can happen much faster, but it's happening. So I think I would close out by saying this sector is one of the unusual ones where we don't need new technology or where we don't need new tools to come in to help. Of course, they're welcome, but it's not as if we don't know how to solve this. We have solved this in many parts of the world. What we do need is much, much more financing. So if I had to wish for one thing, I wish every central bank across the world and every investor really pushes all the users, like the corporates and other users, to value water and to invest much more in water. It's unconscionable and unforgivable that every day, even today, women and girls spend 200 million hours collecting water. Let's change that, and we can. Thank you.
Well, I hope all these wishes come true, and I know you guys are working very hard to make them happen. So let's have a round of applause and a thank you for our incredible panelists.
Turn the whole thing upside down. I'll find the things they say just can't be found. I'll show share this love I'll find with everyone. We'll sing and dance to Mother Nature's song.
Please welcome to the stage Sophia Kiani, Climate Cardinals, Catherine Coleman, Flowers, and Garvita Gulhati, Why Waste, Mina Guli, The Thirst Foundation.
Well, now we have our last panel of this session, and I feel so honored to be here with all of you. I would love to start first with Garvita. I know we're both young people, and I know that you're also known as India's water girl. And at just 13 years old, you embarked on your journey to change people's mindsets around water. So I'd love if you could share what inspired you to take up this charge, and what problem did you want to address in founding Why Waste?
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you all for listening in to us. I think it's an honor to be with incredible women. And on that note, it was incredible women who inspired me to take this action. Back when I was in school many years ago, I had an environmental education teacher who introduced to me this issue that I had never really heard of before. Of course, we had seen water problems around us and understood it and experienced it. But she told us that 14 million liters of water gets wasted every year simply in the water that you leave behind in glasses at restaurants. So you can imagine, to you, that's just a few sips of water, but it actually amounts to so much. But what that drove me to understanding more was the divide that exists in accessibility and overconsumption. Today, there are hundreds of millions of people in the world who lack the access to water, but at the same time, there are hundreds of millions of people who are overconsuming it and don't even know about that. So I think the mission that we embarked on at Why Waste was to help bridge this gap, to help people understand where and how they are overconsuming these resources, to give them the actionable insights, tools, and capabilities to do it, and to really bridge this staggering gap that exists in a resource, and as we've been hearing all morning, should be available to everyone for free. So I think that's where the journey really started.
And Catherine, in your book, Waste, One Woman's Fight Against America's Dirty Secret, you are called the Erin Brockovich of sewage for drawing attention to how sanitation is a critical environmental justice issue, not just for developing countries, but here in the United States. So what inspired you to become an environmental justice advocate and to call attention to this issue?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I guess the reason, it was kind of a natural evolution. Growing up in a rural community, Lowndes County, Alabama, which is between Selma and Montgomery. I grew up, when my parents moved there, we had to get water from a pump. We had to heat our water, put it in a tin tub to take a bath, to wash dishes. This was all here in the United States. And then when I left and I went to college and I went back home, in 2000, I found out there were some people, they had access to water, but didn't have access to sanitation. And they were arresting poor people who could not afford on-site sanitation. And initially, we thought the problem was simply the fact that the technology was too expensive, and we did something that had never been done before, which was a house-to-house survey of the area to find out how many people had sanitation and how many didn't. And as a result, we found out that a lot of the people had sanitation, but it wasn't working accurately. And I think that what happens, the problem with the technology and part of the inequality, is that with poor families are required and mandated to put in place technologies that don't work, they don't have, nobody is held accountable except the residents. And in the US, especially in Alabama, when the septic system goes into the ground, the liability is automatically transferred to the homeowner. And I think that the misnomer that I've heard here today and that I've been hearing over and over again is that we have the technology that works. Give it to us because we haven't used it yet. And a lot of communities are telling us that the technology, not just the poor communities, but a lot of the more affluent communities are also saying, especially on-site technology doesn't work. And as a result, that is what has driven me, because this is America's dirty secret. And even when we were talking about it, people were not listening to us. They didn't start listening to us until we did a parasite study partnering with Baylor's National School of Tropical Medicine and discovered that hookworm was here in the United States. Because people tend to believe that all of these problems are somewhere else in the world, but we have them right here in our own backyards because we have promoted the inequality as opposed to trying to address it. But I think what is good is that this administration, the Biden administration, heard us, because we said, I was actually asked by a reporter, how do we address this issue? And I said, it's just like, you know, my background in history and coming from, you know, between Selma and Montgomery, I said, it's just like what led to voting rights, federal intervention. We're going to need that for sanitation equity as well. So that's how I got involved. It was a natural evolution from my own experiences, and then going back and seeing that nothing had changed and somebody had to make a difference. So I didn't do it by myself, just working with the local community to bring this to the forefront so we can finally address it.
That's such an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. And Mina, I know that you seek to bring awareness to critical water issues through long distance running, which is so impressive. And most recently, you have shifted your focus to riversheds and river basins specifically. So in short, why running and why rivers?
Yeah, Sophia, it's a great question. So many people ask me when they meet me why running, because the truth is I don't really enjoy running, and I'm not a good runner. I was never born to be a runner. I took it up late in life, but I run because I want to show the urgency of the water crisis that we're facing. I want to go to the front lines of this problem and take the stories of the people there and take them into boardrooms where decisions are being made. I want things to be done differently, not because we read cold, hard facts on a page, but because we connect empathetically with the people who are on the front lines of this crisis who are suffering from it. I run because I want to show that small steps can make big change happen. And I run because I want to mobilize and inspire people to believe that we can set big, bold, audacious goals, that we can do the hard things that are needed to get there, and that we can do it when we work together. Together is one of the reasons why I have not only run 200 marathons over the last year in 32 countries around the world, but we did it in collaboration with people across the planet, mobilizing the biggest global grassroots movement on water in history. So lest any of us sit in these meeting rooms and think that we are alone in this fight, the truth is that there are people across this planet in every single country and territory not only hurting from the problem, but inspired to become part of the solution. So running enables me to go meet them, running enables me to go and to tell their stories and to try to leverage and mobilize for change. The reason why I'm interested in rivers is actually because, you know, and it's hard sitting in these conversations today to hear lots of talk about the end piece of the pie, how we get clean water and sanitation services to people in need. But this is not just a toilet and taps problem. Water does not come from a tap. Water comes from healthy ecosystems and infrastructure like our rivers and our waterways. And without healthy waterways, not only do the 2 billion people on the planet who get their water directly from rivers suffer, but all of the projects that we're talking about here today and the commitments and the amazing work will also suffer. So why rivers? Because rivers are at the heart of everything: our water, our climate, our energy, and our food crisis. And yet we are not paying attention to them. As a consequence, they're under stress. I know it because I've seen it. Places like Chile, where I saw the consequences of flooding. In Europe, where I could run underneath bridges where there had previously been in water. And in places right here in the United States like Lake Powell, where I can run to places that the local community told me they could only kayak to when they were kids. This is a major problem. It doesn't have to be like this. There are solutions. I think that one of the great things about CGI is we talk about the positivity and about the solutions that we can find. And in places like the Seine River, which I literally ran down from source to sea, 850 kilometers 2 months ago, around the Olympic Games, to showcase what can be done when we actually do come together and we do make commitments and we do actually find a way to collaborate to solve these big problems. Because the Seine was functionally dead, and in 50 years they brought it back to life. It's still a long way to go, but it is the power of collaboration, the power of coming together in moments like this to develop those big commitments and saying, how can we do things different, how can we do things better, and how can we solve this crisis together?
Small steps can make a big difference, and I think that's a perfect segue to kind of talking about the role that effective storytelling plays in raising awareness and inspiring action on this issue. And so for all of you, I would love if you can share about how you've seen your efforts around advocacy, storytelling, and narrative building impact the water space. Catherine, maybe let's start with you.
Well, I was approached by the Alabama Rivers Alliance to be the subject of a film called The Accidental Environmentalist, Catherine Flowers. And that particular film talked about the role that, we were playing in Lowndes County around wastewater and how it was connected to the environment, especially climate change and environmental justice. And as a result, a lot of film festivals picked it up. And it was shown, I got a chance to go to the Mountain Film Festival. I went to the big film festival they do in California around rivers. So first of all, for me to be branded as a spokesperson for rivers was not traditionally what you see representing rivers. So I think that was a good thing. But also, beyond that, whenever people came and wanted to learn about the wastewater problem, I took them to the homes of people that were actually living with the problem so they could tell their own stories. And then the third thing that happened as a result of the media attention, writing the book, and also eventually getting a call by 60 Minutes. When I got the call from 60 Minutes, they wanted to do a story on what we had discovered as it relates to the wastewater problem and on-site and the parasites that we discovered. And then, of course, someone called after that and said to them, well, we're going to do our own study to verify their study to see if it's accurate. And 60 Minutes said, well, we think we'll wait until after they do their study. But I had to say to them, the reality in this space is that we have to fight sometimes to get attention. And I said to them, if I had been from a traditionally white institution and I did a study to find hookworm and got a MacArthur Genius Award, you wouldn't be calling the HBCU asking them to do a study to verify my study. And consequently, I don't think that they meant anything by it, but they had not thought about it. And I think sometimes we're in the habit of, when we're coming from a place of privilege, we don't think about people living in environmental justice communities and what they have to deal with. But it brought about a change, and when they came and saw what we were looking at, and they actually helped us tell a better story than we would have told in the very beginning. So sometimes I guess the moral of my particular experience is sometimes we have to speak up. We have to speak up even when we feel like they may run away from us as a result, but we've actually become good partners, and every time there's an environmental justice issue, they tend to call us and reach out, and we put them in touch with people in the community that can help them do better storytelling.
Garvita, let's move to you.
Of course. I think fundamentally the concept of water is so abstract and it is so difficult to make people tangibly understand what the impact of their actions are going to be, or the impact of, let's say, their investment or technological implementation is going to really look like. So being able to create the right narrative, being able to express to them, make them feel more empowered, make them feel like they've been a part of the solution when it comes to building that change, becomes even more important when trying to bring water to the forefront. few examples of some of the things we had done was, of course, learned about the issue in restaurants and came up with a very simple solution where we get restaurants to fill glasses only half instead of filling it full. That way people take just as much water as they need and don't waste. While it comes off simple, can be very hard to express the impact that someone's making. So we would place tent cards in the restaurants and tell people that this is the impact of the water that you've conserved, and if you do this X number of times, it's going to really impact someone and give them access in an area that they don't have. And bridging that difference, giving them that number, giving them that tangible impact is what gets them moving. And water really, all it needs is a change of mindset. And all that takes is ensuring that people know that they have been a part of bringing about this change. Another thing that we had done was, growing up, I learned very strongly that we could not leave food on our plates at all, ever. We had to finish all of the water. Wastage was not allowed in my home, and I wanted to be able to propagate that to more and more young people. So we wrote a series of stories where the youngest character is always a change maker, and that empowered them to be and find solutions that maybe they did not think were viable enough, but realize that even the simplest of things can make an impact. So giving them the mirror really helped them become change makers in their own right.
Mina?
I think I really love the comment about how powerful stories can be in making decisions better and encouraging people to do the right thing. When I ran across the desert, the Simpson Desert in Australia, one of the Indigenous community leaders said to me, Mina, decisions would be better if leaders could understand that things are different on the land. And I think that we have in the water space a huge challenge, because there is a massive gap between what is perceived to be happening, in inverted commas, out there and what happens in places like this, where most of us are staying in or around New York City. We got up, we had a shower, the water turned on. We went to the tap in the bathroom to wash our hands or flush the toilet. The water works. Here the water works. And in the vast majority of places where decisions are made, the water also works. And those people are so divorced from the reality of what's happening on the ground that we have failed to connect, other than through these cold numbers on a page, these reports that they get coming across their desk. And I have sat in, I've lost track, how many meetings with government officials and heads of state and CEOs of major multinational corporations that have deep supply chains in all the places that are impacted by water, and with the stroke of a pen could impact the lives of millions of people on the planet, and they do not understand the problem. And the only way we as a community are going to be able to change that is through the power of storytelling. Because storytelling not only engages with the problem, but it inspires these people to go above and beyond, to look us in the eye and to say to themselves, is this really the best that I can do today? Is this the best version of me that I'm bringing to this table, listening to these stories and what you're asking me to do? And I think that's the power of storytelling, to engage empathetically, to get these commitments, because to truly solve this problem, the reality check, we have to do big, bold, audacious things, and we're going to have to get these people to make hard decisions. I'm going to allocate money to water, not this. I'm going to allocate real resources to properly solving these problems, committing to support you guys on the stage, committing to support so many of you in this room that are doing amazing things. That's hard. And that does not happen by esoteric numbers. It happens by an emotional connection. That is the power of storytelling.
And now, in closing, so sadly, this panel must come to an end. On the kind of the topic of commitments, I'd love if you guys could create a call to action of sorts for the audience to leave with for this whole session. So can you please each tell us what you think the most important thing that needs to be done is to further narrative, policy, and behavior shift to improve water access and sanitation issues globally? Maybe Mina, let's start with you, reverse order, and then Catherine, close us out.
Yeah, so I thought about this question a lot. And I think I love threes, so I'm going to go with three things. I think that there are three core words that would be my call to action. The first is to unify. I think that the water sector has been beset by siloed thinking and competition. It needs to end. We all need water to survive. We all need water to thrive. The time has come for us to come together and unify to solve this problem. So my first call to action is unify. The second is to elevate water and rivers into our global conversations and our national conversations. They are missing from the table. We need to find a way to put them back there and to get everybody making these decisions in isolation to understand that there are water and environmental consequences to our rivers and our waterways from the decisions that they're making. So the second is elevate. And the third is really important, and that is amplify. We need to find a way to make our voices so loud, that saving water, that taking action on water isn't just the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do.
I think, of course, resonate with all that you said, but two more things from me. Number one, and I know, Sophia, you'll agree with me on this, give young people more of a chance to give their ideas and their solutions. And here's the beauty of our generation, right? We've been born into a world of problems. We came with it. And that gives us a unique approach to approaching them. And allows us to think a little more differently, a little more creatively, and really go out there with a more optimistic mindset when it comes to implementing these solutions. A lot of studies by organizations like water.org, like the UNICEF Children's Foundation, have actually come up and said this publicly multiple times, that the way to target change at even a household level is through the children, because they are the ones who have immense influencing ability to the family. And the reason that they're able to do this is because they don't come with a lot of these different preconceived notions and are really fresh out there to embrace these solutions. And so give young people that voice on the table, because they're the ones who need to use the future water resources. And the second call to action would be to each and every person to self-audit their water consumption. I think what Catherine said, what Mina said around all of the government and larger leaders, corporations, etc., everyone who has to come together to be a part of this change, and we've been resonating this again through our panels. The biggest challenge that comes to them wanting to make those choices and those decisions is not even knowing what their water consumption looks like. The day you know what your water consumption is, the day you know how optimized you are in utilizing your resources, you're going to start realizing that there are so many decisions that I make throughout the day where I can optimize the use of this resource. There is enough scope, enough possibility, enough innovation and technology to do it. There just needs to be people to have that intent to go out there and make that change and make that choice. And that comes with self-audit. So I think these two would be my calls to action.
Well, I would round it up by saying I would like to see, my call to action is to respect local ingenuity. I think we don't do a lot to respect local ingenuity, and what we're hoping to do through our organization, the Center for Rural Enterprise and Environmental Justice, is in terms of solving the technological challenges of wastewater treatment, especially in rural communities, is bringing together people that have local ingenuity, and those are people that we've seen like in the colonias here in the United States, people that we've seen in other parts of the world that have been able to take nothing and make something out of it, and bring them together with people like the folk that are our neighbors at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, whose role is to keep the astronauts alive. So we want to bring together extraterrestrial knowledge with local ingenuity to solve these problems, and that's our challenge.
I'm just going to make a personal plea to all of you in this room, which is something that someone said to me during one of my campaigns. Individually, you can make an impact. But when we work together, we truly can change the world. Here in this room, under the auspices of CGI and elsewhere in the next 2 days, there are so many people like these amazing women on this stage doing incredible things in the water space, coming up with solutions. You heard a number of them just before these panels. They have amazing ideas. They need scale. They need to be implemented. So if you have expertise, if you have funding, if you have any way of providing support to any of these women here today, any of the initiatives that are around, or anything else, even if it's just introducing water as an element of a conversation in the climate space, please do one thing in the next 48 hours to help all of us here to solve this water crisis. None of us can do this alone, but together we really can solve this problem.
I mean, these issues are intersectional, whether it's water justice or climate change or women's rights. And so we also need intersectional and intergenerational solutions. So I'm so grateful for all the work that you guys are doing and to all of you who have listened to both this panel and the session. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of CGI, and let's have a round of applause. Thank you all for joining me.
Lunch is now served in the Global Cafe, located in America's Hall 1 with live music and networking.